we see that, reporting is a very, very difficult phase, and people,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of reasons why one wouldn't report,
Mm.
despite the impact it has on a person. So you're right, Joanna. I think we put in place, processes and laws and legal
Mm.
frameworks are there. I think even similarly for India, it's pretty high. And while we have a law around it very specifically, and now it's included, harassment has been included under the Indian Penal Code. But yet, I think it's going to take many years for victims to feel comfortable to
Yeah.
come out and report, because of so many reasons and social taboos attached to it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, when we think about that, I last week went to see our Crown Prosecution Service, so our service that is in charge of, once it goes through the police process and it's decided it's going to court, it's with them. And we talked about all of the challenges of why, we have a huge number of victims that drop out as well through the police process, or actually in the wait, because we have up to 3 years wait for rape cases to be seen at court. From the point of reporting, that's very long to be holding that trauma. And if the perpetrator is within your community, within your family, or even in your workplace, whatever, but it's the mere fact of holding on to that thought,
But
because it's more present, isn't it, if you're in that process. People drop out at huge rates. And then they also, we know that they feel judged by the system, and all of those things, and for me, so I suppose, to share my own personal experience, I was raped in university 30 years ago. I'm a bit old now. So, but I chose to, because I found out that the person, he was in my, I lived overseas and I came back and he was in my community. And I found out that he was a therapeutic counsellor. So I felt that I needed the police to have it on the system, just in case he was using his job to continue offending. And I mean, even for me, just the police didn't progress it to court, but that took a year. And I've been trained in this stuff. I've been trained as an advocate. We have sexual assault referral centres to receive people to, safe spaces. I'd worked in all those places, but even for me, I was just like, this is too much, and he lives in my community, so I would see him, and you just can't get away from it. And I, without the reassurance that you've got a really high chance of something happening, why would you do it, really? I mean, I would encourage people to come forward, because things are improving and we need people to report to make those improvements. But I can absolutely understand why people don't.
So, first of all, Joanna, sorry to hear what happened to you, and thank you for sharing it. It's really brave of you to, be able to talk about it. I mean, I can't even imagine what it
But it
would have
happens
been
to so
like.
many women, doesn't it?
Yes.
It happens to so many
Yeah.
women
And
all
I
over the
think,
world.
yeah, all over the world, I think I have experienced it myself, but
Yeah.
uh, harassment, and yet you're not able to talk. And I, I
No.
I think you've been able to talk about it right now, and that's commendable. So thank you, first
Yeah.
of all, for that.
No, I think it's so just to add to that, that's one thing. So I wasn't open about it before, but since I've become in this national role, I thought it was really important that people who had the experience could see that somebody could be in the role who also has the experience. My experience, all of our experiences are different. So I'm not saying I have, the same as anybody. But what I really don't like is this invisibility and the shame. So I made a decision that it's not my shame. It's not for me to hide about
Yes,
it. And
absolutely.
actually, while we do that, people don't come forward. So I did it in the hope that would kind of encourage a challenge around that, really. Like I said, Wales has quite a small population, and we're not hugely diverse, but we do have some challenges around diversity. So we have specialist providers that work with our diverse community, so our Black and minoritised women who are in Wales. But we have some challenges around that, because sometimes the people working in those organisations are related to. So we don't have a huge offer. So I think that for us is a challenge. Also, we have huge parts of Wales that are really rural, And we know in those areas we have particularly low disclosure rates. I think it's hard, for the reasons we said earlier about living in your community and things like that. But when you're so isolated, we don't have services that are very easily accessible. And if somebody needs to get on a bus or whatever, we know that that creates some challenge. But we also know that there are dynamics in the abuse of that, because it's easier to control, it's easier to exclude somebody from mainstream society in those situations. So we do have that challenge. We also have our own language in Wales, Welsh, and we possibly don't have, it's not hugely spoken, but it is spoken in particular parts of Wales more so. And again, that provides a challenge for us in making sure that people are able to access services in their language of choice. So we are trying harder. We also know that we need to meet the needs of LGBTQ plus people and disabled people. They are disproportionately affected by violence against women. We have the evidence around that, but we need to work in ways that encourages that disclosure and that safety, where people don't feel that judgment. So I kind of wanted to add about some of those things. We have lots going on, but we have our challenges and we need to overcome them. I think just one other challenge, and again, I think this is across the world. Violence against women now is increasingly recognised as an issue, isn't it? It's exposed all of the time, and we have lots of initiatives and we have lots of legislation and all of that kind of thing. But actually, we still don't have the resources we need, and I do think there is a lack of prioritisation when we consider the resources to meet the needs of people who are affected by it. Like I've said, we don't have enough services. And, I recently spoke at a conference and I asked, how many people, how often, what will it take basically for us to be able to have the services, for somebody for me to know if somebody told me tomorrow they had an experience and they needed support, that I could guarantee they had to have something. And I can't say that they would be able to get access counselling immediately and things like that. And we know that that is hugely detrimental to people. So that's something that I continue to push for in my role, is we need to do better in that regard.